As a teenager in the 2000s, I lusted after the G35, especially after slinging it through the blacked out streets of Need for Speed Underground and Underground 2, the G35 and the Nissan Zs of the time. And you could see, because of the success of the G35 and other very fun to drive Infiniti models, their sales surged in 2005 all the way to 136,000. Now they went down a bit because of the financial crisis. You had the Fukushima incident in 2011, but look, they peaked in 2017 at 153,000 units, and they fell off a cliff after that. They fired Carlos Ghosn around that time. Infiniti no longer became a volume-focused brand. They didn't really have any sort of focus or vision once Carlos Ghosn was gone. But now they're starting to get some traction here. All right, they bottomed out in 2022. They resurged in 2023 on the backs of the redesigned QX60. QX60, however, is not the vehicle it was when it launched with this recent redesign, because they killed the V6. Please God, with Cafe gone, please return the V6 back into the QX60. It would instantly make it a fantastic luxury vehicle. I can't recommend it with the VC turbo, really. All right. Infiniti is just a two-car brand right now. The QX60, which I just mentioned, and then the fantastic QX80 that's built off the Nissan Armada and Patrol. Now, sales are down about 13% halfway through 2025, and that's because they killed off the QX50, which was built in Mexico. Sales were not good on it. They just killed it off. And tariffs accelerated that path for the QX50. They killed off all their sedans for now. That's a big announcement we're going to talk about today. But they also just recently at the Quail showed off a track version of the QX80 with 650 horsepower, twin turbo V6, and then they have an off-road spec of the QX80, which both of these look insane. I want them both so bad. And then they also showed off the QX65. So they're cooking. They're actually cooking a little bit. Now, the QX65, while it does try to play on our heartstrings of the old FX rear-wheel drive biased V8 powered, optional V8 powered coupe crossovers, this coupe crossover, while looking pretty good, it doesn't have the same long hood proportions as those rear-wheel drive biased SUVs. This is a coupe crossover version of the QX60. And as a result, its proportions are, I think, a bit odd from the side. It doesn't look quite right. The hood needs to be longer here. All right, it looks a bit like bullpup or snub nose situation going on. It's not an ugly vehicle. It looks better probably than the German coupe crossovers, typically, not counting Porsche. All right, so that vehicle's coming. If it comes with the 2-liter VC turbo, I could care less. If it comes with a V6 or some sort of exciting powertrain, it gets me excited. Electrified, who the heck knows? Infiniti, they have nothing to show that's electrified. They used to have hybrids. They have the G37 hybrid, ironically, and I think that's a good segue. Automotive News is breaking this. Q50, not the crossover. That's why then their naming's confusing too, but that aside, the Q50 four-door sedan Skyline is getting a reboot and a stick shift. Can I get a like button smash for the manual transmission, making its way back into essentially the G-Series sedans for Infiniti? I almost said Genesis there, because Genesis is a thorn in the side for Infiniti, and that's a big reason why their sales maybe have not recovered in the rate that they want them to. I have already discussed my issues with Acura's problems as a brand. Infiniti has its own myriad of problems, and competition is the biggest of the issues. All right, so let's get back to the Q50. If you guys are excited, just put in the comments section, like, long live the G35, long live the Q50. Like, I'm so happy this sedan is coming back. It's a redesign, but it's not really a redesign. Infiniti and Nissan don't have the resources for to redevelop or redesign a new platform for this vehicle. Okay, it is going to be sharing the same bones as the Z and old Skyline, but the fact that it's making a comeback, it's like I don't like, our world is so crazy with everything that's going on with electric cars, their rise and fall here in North America anyways, with all the changes with tariffs, all the changes with regulations happening very, very fast. The fact that the Q50 gets a redesign or a revival is just bonkers, but it fits with just the craziness of the automotive market right now. Q50 was discontinued in 2024 calendar year. Now, remember, they wanted to replace the Q50 with a fully electric vehicle. This was at the Japan Mobility Show just 2 years ago. And a couple of my colleagues, like I think Joe got a chance, Mr. Rady himself got a chance to preview this car, but it's not going to come out, I don't think, at all, or it's just been pushed so far into the future that it's not going to come out. Like, they keep delaying these EVs built in Camp, Mississippi indefinitely. Like, it was supposed to be 2026. Now I'm hearing like 28, 29. Like, that's too far out to actually know. All right, this sedan, it's not coming out in the way that, you know, eventually they will have an EV sedan, but that could be 10, 15 years from now. All right. So this is not the future of, or the near future of, Infiniti sedans right now. They've totally given up on it or have just postponed it indefinitely. And the market wants a connection with luxury cars right now. All right. You can have your EVs if you want. You can get them in other brands. But Infiniti is saying, hey, we have fantastic internal combustion sedans, and we're going to make them better and bring it back to the market in the second half of 2027. So 2 years. I don't know why it's going to take 2 years. This decision must have been made recently because they killed it in 2024. And earlier this year, they're like, we got to bring it back. And they don't have, like I said, it's not going to be new technology. It might have new ADAS or safety technology built into it compared to the outgoing Q50, but it's really coming back probably as a low volume enthusiast car, the Q50. It's going to be built on the same platform as the Skyline that is discontinued in Japan, mind you. And of course have the engine from the Z. Now the Z, they don't mention this. This is the same engine that was already in the Q50. Now there may have been slight differences to it, slight tuning difference, maybe slight cooling differences between the Q50's twin turbo V6 and the Z's performance twin turbo V6, but they were both spec'd the same. 400 horsepower, 3-liter twin turbo V6 with 350 pound-feet of torque. The Skyline and the Skyline and Q50 had a 7-speed auto. Well, that will be replaced now with a new 9-speed auto, okay, that the Z has. And it will now have a 6-speed manual. Now, will it be a superior manual to what we have in the Nissan Z? The Z's manual, I just reviewed it this year. And while it's not the most like smooth or the most refined, it is awesome. That car, the Z, made it into my S tier of vehicles I reviewed this year, which means it's the best, take my money sort of category that bring a sense of joy and a sense of value that most cars can't come close to in today's market. The Z hits it. It's not the fastest car in this segment, but it's fast enough for the streets. It's fun as hell. It has lots of character and it looks really cool. So it pulls out a lot of heartstrings for me. And the Q50 Skyline is going to do that as well with a manual. Take the greatness that makes the Z what it is, tons of character, and you bake it into the Skyline Q50 once again. And it's going to be awesome. Dealers have seen it. They said it was badged as a Q50S at the Nissan Motor National Dealer Meeting in Vegas. So the question to me comes, if it's been shown as the Q50S or Red Sport, it could come back as Red Sport, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. But I think they could have quite a few different powertrains if they wanted. They could put a naturally aspirated V6 in it if they wanted, the 3.8 liter or something, or the 3.5 liter. They have two naturally aspirated V6s currently in deployment. So they could do that for the base model. That would replace the outgoing twin turbo V6 that only had 300 horsepower. But could they still just do what they did with the previous model and have twin turbo V6? Absolutely. All right. But I honestly think that I would, for a base model, I'd rather just have the natural aspiration. And then for the S model, not the Red Sport, but for the S model, I think you give it the 400 horsepower twin turbo V6. And then the Red Sport, we could be cooking with something special here, because the Red Sport is being considered. So we have to look at the Z Nismo. Now, the Z Nismo has a 9-speed auto, but Infiniti is showing a commitment here to manual. So there's a possibility we could get a Red Sport with a manual option. This has 420 horsepower. Now, based off of what Infiniti just flexed with, so I go back to this vehicle, the Q80 Track, they're tuning and cranking this thing all the way to 650 horse from a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. Could we see a 500 horsepower tune or more out of the 3 liter V6? And the answer is absolutely. It could happen. Am I going to get my hopes up for it? No, but I think 420 horsepower is minimum expectations, and 384 pound-feet of torque is minimum expectations for the Red Sport. Infiniti's America's Vice President, Tiago Castro, who I spoke with when I did my tour with the QX80 Sport, he is saying that the Q50 redesign is unapologetic and unexpected. Okay? It is unexpected, honestly. Unapologetic, we'll see. The reboot is a nostalgia play targeting the affluent 50-plus-year-old crowd, mostly men who grew up chewing pavement with the G35 Sports Coupe. I would say it even targets younger people like myself in their mid-30s who grew up racing that car in video games and looking up to that car as something to attain. Now, they're not going to more than likely have a coupe Q50 and call it the Q60. I think they're just going to call it the sedan, because the Q60 Skyline sales were not good for Infiniti, and that model died off before the Q50 did. It's an opportunity to connect back to the roots of the brand. Absolutely. Performance is the roots of the brand, in my opinion. Luxury a little bit, but performance, absolutely. The QX65 also gets introduced next year. I'm sure it'll be built in Smyrna, Tennessee, alongside the QX60 three-row crossover. Vinay Shahani, Nissan's U.S. sales and marketing chief, he has said, we haven't had the product. We're now coming to the table with the product. There's still no hybrids. There are no EVs. That's a bit crazy to me. And, we have the new Nissan Leaf. They could rebadge it as an Infiniti, slightly different materials, give it dual motor within 300 horsepower. And I think it would be a perfect vehicle. Maybe have it start around 38,000, something like that. I think that'd be a perfect vehicle to have your foot in the market as an EV. All right. And it differentiates itself enough away from the Leaf to make it interesting. Okay. Here's some other details from some of the dealers that saw this vehicle. The Q50 swoopy profile, slender headlights. Well, look at the new QX65, right? And Skyline style circular taillights. I'm glad they're keeping Skyline circular taillights in there. All the, that is a staple that has to make a comeback, and it needs to be very, very pronounced. Okay, here's the R34's taillights. They need to be pronounced like this. What about the R32s, which is, I think, my favorite rear end of the Skyline? I love these, symmetrical taillights in the back. It seems very analog and 80s feeling to me. So I hope we get some rear taillights that look like this. They look like afterburners to me. They look so good. If we look at R33, again, the R33 is a much softer and more rounded out vehicle compared to an R32. And then they kind of made it a little bit more hard looking with the R34. But again, these taillights, iconic. Looking at the R31, very 80s, very analog looking rear taillights here, looking sweet. R30, same thing, 80s vibe, circular taillights. This looks like a cigarette lighter from back in the day. Looks so good. And we go back to the final edition of the GTR here. I'm not saying Infiniti's getting a GTR. They're not. It would be sick, but the GTR kept the afterburner circular taillights that preceded it in other generations. But if we look at the Q50's rear, and this is what took it away from what made the Skyline feel so unique. Where are my circular taillights? Well, they're bringing it back, and I'm probably going to crap myself when I see them because it brings so much nostalgia and happiness swelling for me. Like there's just a lot of emotion with those rear taillights, and I'm so glad they're going to do that. You know, if we look at the images of the Q50's brother, the Skyline, they tried to do it with some circular taillights built inside of the rear taillights. This is the last Nismo special edition. And they did do it, but it's not the same, right? It's kind of a faux afterburner taillight. And if they do this again, I'm going to puke in my mouth. This is a mockery of what is the true circular taillights. This is not what I want to see. Okay, they need to be individual, distinct, with not and they can't have these stupid capsules over the rear. They need to be looking much more like this, but I would prefer the symmetrical rear taillights personally. Let me know what you guys like. The last thing, one of the dealers in the Northeast market saying this Q50 has to be all-wheel drive, but Infiniti is saying it is rear-wheel drive. Well, it could absolutely be all-wheel drive optional, just like the last Q50 was. It's going to be rear-wheel drive biased, of course, but optional all-wheel drive. If it's not optional all-wheel drive, it might be a tough sell for many, many people out there that would potentially be interested in this vehicle. We're going to finish with this. Infiniti pushes for 100 annual sales goal for mid-decade, so this year's mid-decade, 100,000 sales that they said. Now, that came from Craig Keyes. Last time I saw Craig Keyes was at headquarters for Nissan in Nashville. It was like, you know, they took our phones and everything because they showed us the QX65 there. And Craig Keyes had a little sit down, and he did a really good job of like pumping up and getting me excited for Infiniti. But it wasn't until like now is like we're starting to get some traction for Infiniti. All right. But 100,000 vehicles, he said, in 2023, just 2 years ago, by mid-decade. Well, again, let's go back to the sales. Year to date, they're at 25,000 halfway. So let's just say they get to 50,000. They're down 9% from the last year. There's no way they're going to get, they're half of where Craig Keyes projected by mid-2020s. All right. And so now they've extended the goalpost as we go back to Tiago Castro's now moving the goalpost to 2030. So they're hoping to get back to 100,000 units in 2030, which is possible. All right. Again, last year, they only hit 58,000. They're going to be less than that this year due to a shrinking of the portfolio. QX50 gone, Q50 gone, QX55 gone. So they're going down again this year, despite the QX80 being on board. But the QX80 is a small volume vehicle. It's $100,000 plus, right? And it's worth it. It is worth it, but you can get a Nissan Armada, which is essentially the same vehicle, just not quite as glitzy, for a lot less money. They are still hoping to get back to six figures by 2030. Again, they went down from 65,000 to about 58,000 in 2024, and they're going to be around 52,000 in 2025 is what they're pacing. They have a lot of work to do, and they need product. There's only so many units they can move on the sedan end with the new Q50, but that won't happen until 2028, essentially, when it's on the market for a full year, 2028. We'll have the QX65, but that's just going to take sales away from the QX60. The QX80 will get some more sales if, going back to these models, if they can successfully nail these products. Really high output, high performance QX80 that makes the Nismo Patrol and Nismo Armada look weak sauce. If they nail this, they can do it. I mean, it looks so good with the wide body kit. So good. You know, the off-roader looks amazing too. They can get some sales there, but again, the market's really small because it is so expensive. They need something in the sweet spot in the luxury division, which is $50,000 to $60,000 range. All right. The Q50 can do that, but they need a crossover in that range, which they don't have. The QX65 might come close, but I have a feeling that if it comes with a VC turbo, it's dead on arrival, despite it looking hot from most angles. All right, so what does Infiniti need? Well, Infiniti is coming out with a new product. All right, here's a QX65. This was, gosh, when was this? I was heading to Puerto Rico, so this was this spring when this news dropped. QX65 announced. This is the refreshed QX60. Then in the back, guys, in the back is not the EV crossover because that was scrapped or postponed so far. This is the Infiniti variant of the new Rogue, and it should have e-power to it. That could move the needle, absolutely. Look, Lexus is very successful with reusing Toyota hybrids with the 2.5 liter. The NX 350h uses a RAV4 hybrid powertrain, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good. If they can be just as good as Lexus in that regard with a mid-size crossover with hybrid, very efficient and smooth driving mechanics that makes a very good luxury car, they could sell that thing like hotcakes. They could. All right. Again, Infiniti is kind of like Nissan Plus at this point. The QX60 is a Pathfinder. The QX80 is an Armada. This new QX50 here is going to be a Rogue, a really nice Rogue. And the new Rogue is going to be amazing. Mark my words, the new Rogue is going to be fantastic. It's going to leapfrog the CR-V hybrid, and it should battle it out really well with the new RAV4. Mark my words. I think it's going to be that good. Can they get the pricing down on that e-power powertrain because it's imported? Who knows? But a volume vehicle like this with what's hot in the market, which is hybrid, maybe they also have a plug-in hybrid of it. It should come because e-power, it's not hard to make a plug-in hybrid with e-power. So if they can also secure that for the Infiniti lineup, we're cooking with fire now with Infiniti, and they have a really strong product lineup, especially if they get rid of the VC 2-liter turbo in this model, the QX60 and QX65. They need to put the V6 back in there as soon as possible because it is so good with it. Without it, it's just another pseudo luxury vehicle. But I'm going to shut it down there. Can't believe I've talked for over 30 minutes as the lawnmowers go on behind me. I can't believe I've talked for over 30 minutes about the revival of Infiniti. I'm actually, think about this, guys. I am more hopeful for the revival of Infiniti than Acura. We have true body on frame badassery going on here, and it is coming. We just don't know to what degree. We know that Infiniti makes insane concepts that are just mind-blowing, right? If they come out looking 90% as good as this and have a nice performance boost, then we're talking about Infiniti's back, honestly. If they can nail these things, Infiniti's back. With the Q50 coming back, Infiniti's back. Can they ride that success? Can they have enough hybridization with the new QX50 and somehow bring it over to the QX60? Time will tell. But this is the first time I've had some hope in Infiniti. And can they get to 100,000 units by 2030? And the answer is it's 50-50 shot. They have to nail the QX50 hybrid and plug-in hybrid. And these have to get V6s, and the Q50 needs manual transmission, needs to be a success. We know the QX80 is going to keep doing its thing and kicking ass, but outside of that, I need more reason to believe. But I'm getting some nuggets that are leading me to probably some false hope, but I'm buying it. I'm slurping up the hype here. I'm getting in front of this hype train and getting smacked by it, and I'm probably going to lead myself ultimately to disappointment, but I'm okay with that. I love getting hyped, and Infiniti, I'm getting hyped over right now, and I cannot believe it. I'll see you in the comments. Have a great day, guys, and peace out.